Alright, so let's go ahead and walk past the trigger area here, and that bottle should just go flying off in a random direction. So we're going to go ahead and walk through, and whoa, that went straight up into this corner here. Let's go ahead and relaunch the game, and now once again, it should it should fly off that table at a random direction this time, and then boom, that time it went to that corner. Let's go ahead and do it one last time and see where it goes this time. We're going to go ahead and walk through. And boom, smash into the wall this time. So, hey guys, it's Techo Freak here, and welcome to episode 39 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're continuing with Randomness. This is Randomness Part 2. Should be the last part, yeah, we're going to be talking about Part 2, showing you guys some examples of how we're going to use these random numbers that we generated in the last episode to do something in our level. So if you haven't watched the last one, I highly encourage you guys to do so. Not completely necessary, because I will show the functions that we will be using, but definitely a good idea to go watch the previous video, part 1 of Randomness, so you can learn how to generate numbers in your own custom story. I'm just going to be showing you guys a few simple examples of how you can implement the use of random numbers. So let's go ahead and start. So first thing I want to talk about is I'm going to go ahead and open up my level editor here, and what I'm thinking of doing for demonstration in this episode, I'm thinking we have this door here and it's set to be locked here. So what I want to do is I want to make it so that when we go through this trigger area here, there is a random chance that we can specify as to whether or not this door will be locked or not. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna test that out. That'll be the first thing we do, and we'll write a function to use it. And then we're also gonna do something else here, a little bit further than that. So I'm gonna zoom in down here. I'm gonna focus down here at the bottom by hitting F, and I'm gonna go ahead and go over here, and we have a trigger area here that triggers a timer, and I will cover exactly how these work when we start talking about them. So if they don't make sense right now, I'll cover them, so don't worry too much. But we have a trigger area here, and this calls a timer in our script that then spawns a ghoul that is up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that the ghoul spawning has a % chance, just like that door. So we'll use the same ideas for the door as we will to spawn them in or not. We'll also set a random time for that timer, make it so he spawns in at a random time that we specify. And then finally we'll end off the video by setting a bottle here. We have a bottle here on the table here, and we're going to set it to go ahead and just fly off the table. So that's what we'll be talking about. Those are the three examples we'll be doing today. We'll be using a variety of those random numbers that will be we have. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to talk about the door. So again, it is locked here, and we have this trigger area. And again, I will cover what this trigger area is right now. So we have this trigger area, and when the player interacts with this trigger area, it calls this onCollide player trigger 1 function that is in our CodeLight script file here, and that is this function right here. If you watched last episode, you should be familiar with this explanation and the code that we wrote there. But if not, what this pretty much does is that this checks to see if all state is equal to 1, meaning that if all state is equal to 1, then that means that the player just entered the trigger area. And if so, we go ahead and set his running to be enabled. We print out a message, and we also, from the last episode, generated out some random numbers here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clear all of this here, as we won't need it for this example here, but we will use some of the functions included there. And then otherwise, if the player leaves the area or anything else, we don't really care what happens. We just go ahead and return false. We really just care about when the player enters the trigger area here. So with that said, let's go ahead and start talking about how we're going to go ahead and implement this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make our own function that accepts a % chance. So if we want a object to have a 40, let's say like a 50% chance of spawning, we want to provide a function that we create, the number 50, and then using that number, it will tell you true or false. It would like roll an imaginary chance, it will roll a random chance, and if it is 50%, if it meets that 50% mark, 30%, 70% that you provide, then we will go ahead and return true. Otherwise, we will return false, and that the true or false means yes, you rolled the right chance to caused this event to happen, or false, you didn't roll the correct random number to make this happen. So it should make more sense when we write it out. But let's go ahead and write it out here. So we'll go ahead and put 2 new lines here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to say bool. And I'll explain what that means in a moment. We'll say random chance. And then we'll go ahead and put some parentheses here, curly braces, and open it up. So bool here is implying that this function here is going to return either true or false. Just like this one here, we have to return something here. So this one will return a boolean value, which is true or false. And obviously that's what we want, because if the percent chance occurs, then we want to return true. If it doesn't occur, we want to return false. We want to be able to pass in a value here. This is going to be an integer, and we're going to pass in a number. This is going to be essentially a number between 0 to 100, and that's the percent chance of something happening. So this will kind of like roll an imaginary chance of something happening based on this number that we provide. So we're just going to call this value percent chance. And we'll go ahead and hit save so we get the color there. And now let's talk about what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to say int, and we're going to say random number. So we're going to get our random number first. We're going to say random number equals C math, and go to underscore, and we're going to say rand rec L, or 1. This is to get a random integer. We talked about this one in the last episode. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll a number between 1 and 100. So we're going to do 1 and 100. And this is pretty much the random. We're going to generate a random number between 1 and 100, between 0 and between 1 and 100%. And then we will compare that number that we get and see if this percent is in that same range. So again, it will make sense in a moment when we write it out. So we're going to say if, and we'll say parentheses, open and close curly brace, and then in here we're going to say random number, and we'll go ahead and fill that in. Random number. So we're going to grab our random number that we generated here, that we saved into this variable called random number, and we're going to check if it's less than or equal to our percent chance. And then if it is, we're going to return true. And I'll run through this real quick, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense. And we have one last line to put here, but we'll go over this right now. So what we're doing is we're rolling a random number between 1 and 100, and then the percent chance that we provide, we're going to see if that random number we rolled is less than or equal to that percent chance. So pretty much, if you provide, for example, 40, right? And we generate a random number between 1 and 100, there's a 40% chance that we roll that number or less. So that will give us the percent value that we're looking for. So another example, let's say 60, right? So if we put 60 here, if we give 60 to this function, that's a 60% chance, right? So if we roll a random number here, then the chances of it being 0 to 60, because that's what we specified up here, is going to be a 60% chance, because it's 60 out of 100. So that will give us our percent chance. And so let's say let's say we go ahead and compare this, random number. Let's say we randomized number 12, right? And we provided 40 here. So 40 is less than or equal to 12, which means we rolled in that correct range that we provided with the percent chance. And then we return true, which means that in this case our random value is true. But in the event that we randomize the number, and let's say it's like 81, and we said it was a percent chance of 40, it would have to be less than or equal to 40. So in that case, that would return false. So what we do is we put a new line here, and we'll say return false. So again, pretty much you provide a percent chance, a number. If the random number we roll is less than or equal to that percent that we provide, 40, 50, 60, Then we return true, which means we rolled in the correct range, in the correct random range, which makes this true. We rolled the correct number. Otherwise, we return false. We rolled the wrong number for the percent chance to be true, and we go back. So this is just a way to get the chance value. So now we could just go ahead and come up here, for example, and we say random chance, and now we put our percent, let's say out of 60%, right? Now this, every time we run this, we will get a different result because of course it is random, and there is a 60% chance that this will return true. So if you run this 100 times, essentially it should be true 60 out of those 100 times, because that's pretty much exactly how we coded it, and that's the percent chance, of course. So now that we have that written out, we can actually start using this, and all this code, of course, will be written in the description. So if you don't want to write this yourself, you can just go ahead and go in the description, go to the Pastebin, and just copy this function here. This is more of like a helper function to help you. Of course, you can do this. You can just copy this and use it wherever you need it. But this makes it an easy way to use it, so you don't have to write more code than you have to, and it just makes sense. Random chance, put a percent value, and then boom, we get true or false. So that'll help us when we're deciding whether to spawn a ghoul or whether we're choosing to set a door locked or unlocked. We just call this function, and boom, we get a true or we get a false. So let's go ahead and see how we're going to use it now. So again, this is our trigger area. I spoke about this at the beginning. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set that door to be unlocked with a random chance. So we're going to say swing door. And we don't want push open here. We're gonna say swing door, and we're just gonna say set, and we want set locked here. So set locked. So now we have to provide the name of the door. That's gonna be door underscore 1. And I'll show you that that's the name in a second. So we're gonna go ahead and put a comma, a space, and whether or not it's gonna be locked. So this is where the randomness comes in. So we're gonna say random chance, the function we just wrote, and now we can provide the random chance percent. So what percent do we want? We're gonna put 50 because it'd probably be the easiest way to see it happen when we load up the game, because we know how many attempts it's gonna take because it is random. So we're gonna say random chance 50. So now the chances of this function returning true or false based on what we wrote here is gonna be 50%. So 50% of the time that door will unlock or be unlocked or locked. So we're gonna say now we got to put in the last function. The last function for this, the last value for this function is whether or not you want door effects to play. Some doors have effects that you can activate or deactivate. We're gonna put true because we don't want to modify anything with the door's effects, but we do have to provide that for this function, and that'll complete the function here. So again, for door 1, and we'll go ahead and open up our level editor here so you guys can see this is door 1. So for door 1, we want a random chance for this to return true or false, and it's going to be out of 50%. Of course, you can change this. You can put 90% chance that it is going to be unlocked, or this is to set it locked. Don't forget, this is to set it locked. So this is a 90% chance that it is going to be locked. Or you could do the opposite. This is a 10% that it's going to be locked, a 90% chance that it will be locked. So it's pretty much that simple. We go ahead and put random chance 50, and that's it. And you can use this wherever. So once you get this function inside of your script, you can go crazy with it. You can use it wherever you want, wherever it's appropriate, and start using it. So swing door set locked, 50% chance. Spawn ghoul, 90% chance. We can go for like that, and we will be talking about spawning the ghoul. So before we go ahead and move on to the ghoul, we're gonna go ahead and test this first. We're gonna see if this works fine. If it works fine and everything, then we'll go ahead and come back, and we'll go ahead and keep going with the next random stuff that we're gonna be doing in today's episode. So let's go ahead and start up our game. Alright, so here we are in our custom story. So we're going to go ahead and step through our trigger area right here, and that will randomly choose whether or not to unlock the door. So right now it's set to be locked. We are running the function swing door set locked. So there's a 50% chance that ends up being false, and then this door would end up being unlocked. Otherwise, it'd be true and it wouldn't do anything because the door is already locked. So let's go ahead and step through this. So we'll step through. let's go ahead and go to the door now. And let's go ahead and open it. And it is now open. Remember, we set it to be locked. I showed you guys in the level editor, it was locked, and now it is unlocked. So we rolled the correct chance to unlock the door. So we're gonna go ahead and hit options, debug options, and hit reload here. And this is gonna reload everything. We'll step through this trigger area here, and we'll come back and we'll try it again. And this one is unlocked again. So let's keep going and let's see when eventually we get our locked door. So we'll step through, try and open it, and this time it is locked. So I'm trying to pull it open and it's not going anywhere here. So the door is locked. And if we reload again, we could probably get a different outcome as well. And we'll go ahead and go through here, and we'll go ahead and try and open this. This is locked again, so that was, I believe that's 2 for 2 there, so that's perfect, 50%. So yep, so there it goes. That's how you use that, and that is a 50% chance of working there, of spawning unlocking the door or not. So feel free to use that in your levels however you please. Definitely makes it a fun, interesting a level where you can choose doors that you want locked or unlocked. So pretty cool stuff. So let's go back and let's talk about the ghoul now. We're gonna set the ghoul to do some cool stuff too. Alright, so we're back here in our script now. So let's talk about how we can get the ghoul to do some cool stuff. So we're going to go ahead and comment out this door here. We're not going to use it anymore. We showed that in the demonstration. So now let's talk about how we can get that ghoul to spawn sometimes. So I might not actually use it in the demonstration. Instead, I might show off a different part of this. We will set him to spawn at a random amount of time. So let's go ahead and talk about that. First, I want to show you guys the setup in the level editor here again one last time. So if we zoom in down here, remember we have a trigger area here, and the trigger area, if we click on here, is called trigger bottom stairs. And this, when the player interacts with this trigger area, we call the function onCollide player trigger bottom stairs in our script file. And if we go into our script file here and we look for that function, it should be somewhere down here. Right here on collide player trigger bottom stairs. Again, we do the same thing. We check all states to make sure that the player just entered the area and we don't care about anything else. And if the player just entered the area, we go ahead and create a timer which is going to spawn a ghoul. The timer is right here, and what it does is it does some stuff with the light here. We might actually just comment this out so we don't have any changes to the light here. What we do here is we set the entity active ghoul hallway to be true, and that will activate our ghoul. So here is where we can make the changes. So now if we use the same method we did with the previous one with the swing door, what we could do is just highlight this, and we can say is random chance, %chance. And we do, if we want to do the same thing, we could do 50 here, and he will have a 50% chance of spawning or not. You know what? I think I will include it in the demonstration. Let's see if we can get it to happen. I don't know how many attempts it's going to take, but it will take 10 seconds per attempt based on this timer. But let's also talk about this timer here. So how can we randomize the amount of time that this timer can go off? So we can use our functions from the previous episode as well to generate a random float. So what we can do is, instead of 10 seconds here to spawn in this ghoul, to set off this timer and then spawn in this ghoul or not, because of course we set it to be a random chance, we're gonna go ahead and randomize a number. So I'm gonna randomize something a bit lower so we can quickly see these results when we restart the level. So what we're going to do here, we're going to clear this. We need a float for this one. This one takes a float. So we're going to say C math. We're going to say C math underscore. And we're going to say rand. We'll hit control space to get our functions to come up here. And what we want is rand rect F here. This generates a random float, which is what we need here. And we need a min and a max now. So what's the time range, the random time range that we want this timer to go off in? I'm gonna say, let's set it off anywhere between, let's say 1 to 15 seconds. I say that's a pretty good range so we can notice bigger differences. So we're gonna say 1.0f, comma, space, and then we're gonna say 15.0f. So this will spawn this will start the timer that will spawn this ghoul at random, of course, in 1 to 15 seconds. So it will go off anywhere between 1 to 15 seconds. And of course, these are decimal value. It will give you decimal values here. It will give you like 1.75, 15, and like 14.27 or something like that. If you don't want that, you could switch this one out for the Randrec 1, which gives integer, which gives an integer instead, and that should work in this field as well. I haven't tested it, but I think it should work, and you could do that instead. But this will work fine. This is actually better. I feel like it'd be a bit more random in how it generates. So we're gonna go ahead and hit save here, and now let's test it out. We'll go ahead and trigger that trigger area, and we'll see how long it roughly takes for the ghoul to spawn here. So let's go ahead and start up our level now. Alright, so here we are in our level. We're going to go ahead and run through here, and we're going to go straight down to the bottom, and we want to go ahead and trigger our area down at the bottom. So here it is. So this is where our area is going to be. We're going to go ahead and step through, and the ghoul spawns at the top of the stairs. So let's go ahead and run back. We might not make it back in time if we set the timer to be 1 to 15 seconds, and he actually might not even spawn. So let's see what happens. There actually is a message that prints out here when an enemy enters the level, so we will be able to see that. So let's go ahead and step through. So we step through. Let's run back. It's going to be a max of 15 seconds that he will take to spawn. That's what we set to be random. And he should spawn here if that randomized to be true. I don't think we're getting any spawning here, so let's go ahead and start heading back down. Give him another few seconds to spawn if he is going to spawn, and let's go ahead and hit options here, and let's go ahead and reload it again, and let's try it again. Let's see what he does here. So I stepped through it, and let's see if he spawns this time. So it doesn't look like he's gonna spawn this time. It's another false. So to speed this up a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit this in the CodeLight application. Remove that random chance. We know it's working. It's set to he's getting false right now. But just to test the timer, I'm going to go ahead and edit that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to test that. Alright, so we're back here again. So I went ahead and set the ghoul to spawn to be true instead of waiting for the random number. That way we can compare the timer function. So we're gonna go ahead and hit debug options here, and we're gonna hit reload. And now we're back here. So we're gonna go walk through this plane again. So we know he's gonna spawn for sure this time, but let's see how much time it takes. So we're waiting. Alright, there he goes. That was maybe just short of 10 seconds. So let's go ahead and walk through here. He should be standing right there. Remember, it said any enemy count down here. So let's go ahead and hit debug, and let's reload it one more time. And let's see about how much time this one takes. It should be a bit more obvious than the true or false here. Of course, I take damage there because I fell too far. We'll go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and reload it, and then we're gonna try it again. So let's get options, debug, reload, and let's step through it. Let's see how long this one takes. So I've got like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 15 now. Yep, it took almost a full 15 seconds, so that one was way longer than the previous one. I made it all the way up the stairs before he spawned, but that was definitely random. He spawned randomly between 1 and 15 seconds. So that works. He's spawning random. Definitely another good thing to use in your custom story. If you know there's a point where you want to scare the player, you want to spawn in a ghoul and scare the player and stuff, but you don't want to do it like at one set point every time. That's easy to do. You can use this random number. If let's say once the player enters this room, you want a ghoul to spawn anywhere between like 60 to 120 seconds after he enters that room to kind of give him a different experience every time. You can do that. Something that the developers also do, based on like fear levels, based on how often the player has died, they actually do generate like more favorable numbers. So they see that you're struggling a lot, you've died a lot, they'll actually lower the rates at which the ghouls spawn. They might spawn them like less frequently and stuff. And of course, you can accomplish this by using these random numbers. So let's go ahead and go back and talk about the last thing for today, and that's going to be setting a bottle flying off the table. It's going to be a bit of a Portuguese kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and go back to our script now. Alright, so here we are back in our script, guys. So again, here is where I set this back to true, just so that I wouldn't have to keep trying multiple times for that to go. But we've already tested that function with the door, and we know it works, so that's no problem. So so now let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to do this thing with the bottle. So let's go ahead and go back up to our original trigger area here. If we go to our, we open up our level editor here, and we go over here to the main room here. We have this bottle just kind of hanging out on the table here. So what I want to do is I want to randomly send this bottle flying off the table in any random direction. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is generate a random vector. So we did talk about vectors in the last episode as well, and random vectors, and we want them pretty much to go flying in any random direction again. So let's go ahead and talk about how we're gonna do that. This one is called Bottle 1. We don't need to set any callbacks or anything. We just need to know its name, and that's Bottle 1. So let's go ahead and open up our code light here, and let's talk about how we're gonna do that. So we're gonna go ahead and open up a new line here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say entity. We talked about player force and prop force in a previous episode. So if you guys want to check out that video, go ahead and check out that video. So we did talk about this function here. And this is going to be the entity add force function here. So we're going to say entity add force. And now we have to specify which is the entity here. So that's going to be bottle 1, just like we saw, just like I showed you guys. And now we need the actual vector that we're going to be generating here. So it's the random vector that we want. Of course, normally you could just put whatever force you want to apply. But in our case, we're going to randomize this. But let's skip this for right now. Let's just finish out the rest of the function here first. So for the last variables here, we're just gonna go ahead and set a few values here. So we have AB local space. If we go ahead and type out the whole function here again, say entity add force, you can see what those mean here. So local space, true means that the force is added relative to the rotation of the entity. False means it's added to world space. We talked about this. That pretty much means that the force will be applied according to the world's coordinates or the rotation of the actual object. We're going to set this to false because we want it to be with the world's rotation. But you can set this to true. In this case, where it's going to be random, we don't really care so much. It's going to be random at the end of the day. So you could put true, you could put false, but we're going to put false here. And then the last one was whether or not you wanted to add the force to the main body, or not, or add it to all the bodies of the entity. So sometimes there's sometimes objects have multiple bodies, but we're going to apply force to all the bodies. So we're going to say false here. We want all the force to be applied for every single body that this bottle might have. And with that completes the function. We just need the actual part that's going to be random here. And for that, we're going to be using cmath underscore rand, and we're going to say vector 3f. We need three-dimensional vector. We need an x, a y, and a z because we're going to be sending it off in one of those random directions. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter here to get our rand vector here. And now we provide two vectors that's going to be the range. So we're going to say c vector, and we're going to say 3f here. And we'll put the parentheses, and now we need to provide the three values that is going to be for the force of the object that we're going to apply force to, the three forces that we want to apply to the actual object. Remember, there's a positive z direction, negative z direction, positive x, positive y, negative y. There's it goes forward and backwards. So you need to these values will need to be either negative or positive. So if you're going in one direction, it's going to be negative. If you're going the other direction, it's going to be positive. So so we're going to generate a random force. We're going to do a force of 10,000. We're going to say negative 10,000 first here. And we'll say that for every single one here. Negative 10,000, or I forgot the minus here. And these should be floats. So we should put 0.0f here. And then we should put 0.0f here. And then we'll say minus 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll say 0.0f as well here. So this is going to apply force in the negative. It's going to randomize three numbers, an x, a y, and a z, and it's going to start at the negative 10,000 at negative 10,000 and go up to the second vector here. So let's go ahead and write out that second vector. Let's say comma space C vector 3F parentheses. And now we're pretty much going to do the same thing here. So I'm actually just going to copy this here for simplicity. And we're going to remove the minus now. So we're going in the complete opposite direction. So again, just to cover these minuses, this minus is a negative x, the negative x 10,000. We're going to apply a force of negative 10,000 in the negative x direction. This one, 10,000 in the positive x direction. And then this is the y, this is the z, this is the y, and this is the z. If we're pushing it off the table, we of course don't want any downward force on the y. So we can actually just change that here. So we don't want no downward force. We only want it to go up. So we're gonna set this to 0 here, 0.0f here. So we don't actually want any y force down. We only want y force up and in the x and z directions. So we're gonna set this to 0 here. So it'll only be 0 to 10,000. So it's only positive y's here. But of course you could leave it here and you can see what kind of results you get. But there's a chance that it'll just fly down and smash into the table. It'll just kind of smash, like cave in on itself and just break. We don't want that. We just want it to go up into the positive y. We want it to go upwards. So with that, that's pretty much it. Our bottle should fly right off the table. And again, we're doing this with a random generated number here, a random vector. We're generating a random vector that is going to apply a random force to this object. So again, if you have you want to make it like a ghost is slapping a bottle off of a table, rather than being simple and just kind of like sending it in one direction, you can actually make it so it flies in any direction every time. So if somebody replays your custom story or replays the same scene multiple times, they'll always see a different effect. So I think that's super cool. So let's go ahead and start up our custom story for the last time today, and let's check out what this looks like in game. Alright, so let's go ahead and walk past the trigger area here, and that bottle should just go flying off in a random direction. So we're going to go ahead and walk through, and whoa, that went straight up into this corner here. Let's go ahead and relaunch the game, and now once again, it should fly off that table at a random direction this time, and then boom, that time it went to that corner. Let's go ahead and do it one last time and see where it goes this time. We're going to go ahead and walk through. And boom, smash into the wall this time. So as you can see, we got it in 3 different places. We got it here, we got it over there, and we got it over here. Completely random, super cool, really something fun to implement in your levels. And with that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the episode there. A lot of fun stuff. I only showed a few little things, but really the options are literally limitless with randomness. You could literally do whatever you want. You can make super cool levels with a whole bunch of randomness. You can just do little things where it's random, something like this, a nice little touch. It's not super obvious, kind of scripted, kind of not, because the bottle will go flying in any direction. Super cool. A super fun thing to do. I love randomness, guys. It's just a cool way to just spice up any level, to spice up anything really when it comes to programming, coding, modding, whatever it is. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the episode here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go ahead and leave a like in the video if you did. Leave any comments if you have any questions or you want to say how cool this kind of stuff is. And other than that, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and have a good day, guys. Bye.